I was 14 when I went to a Gaeltacht summer camp. I was actually excited at first. I really loved Irish and my mum told me my dad was fluent. I was really hoping I could have a conversation with him in Irish if he decided to come visit us. We didn't really have much else in common. I don't really care for sports, especially GAA. I was always much more into reading. My mum didn't have much hope of him coming back anytime soon, but I do know she was happy at the prospect of me making some friends. Hopefully some that I could see again once it was all done. I'd had a hard time making friends back home. My mum was working the night before I was due to leave, so I told her I'd get myself to the bus and she could have a lie-in. Partly out of compassion and partly because I wanted to feel grown up. Wanted to show that I could do things for myself. The bus ride to the Gaeltacht would have been completely uneventful if not for the cute guy sitting right across from me who kept looking my way. He might have been about 16, a small age difference looking back, but he felt so much more grown up than me. Tall, handsome, broad shoulders, and adorned in his local GAA tracksuit. He had a few friends with him already, and they were chatting while I read and stole glances. Eventually he caught me enough times that something had to be said. His name was Ryan. The next 3 weeks went by pretty quickly. I took any opportunity to be closer to Ryan that I could. He always laughed at the jokes that I made, though they were far and few between. He was just so good at making eye contact. Whenever we spoke, I felt like I was everything to him for those few minutes. Maybe it was just wishful thinking, but I really had this gut feeling that he liked me back. It just felt so right. I could tell most of his friends weren't that interested in having that weird, quiet kid around, but I wasn't there for them anyway. Every day brought me closer and closer to the end of our stay. I had to keep shrugging that aside and pretend it wasn't going to end, that I could stay here forever. I was so unsure about what to do, so I enlisted the help of one of the teachers. She was a lot older, maybe around 50. I tried to tell her about how there was someone I liked a lot and I was afraid I'd never see them again. Afraid they wouldn't like me back. I never told her it was a guy. She kept saying her and she. I smiled awkwardly through it and pretended I was talking about a girl. She'd been pretty encouraging. She finished by telling me about the final Kaylee and that kissing was okay there. That I should just go for it and the worst that could happen is that she'd say no. In a sense, she was right. The end finally did come and with it the final Kaylee. My last chance for a first kiss. I wasn't going to let this opportunity pass me by. The time to pair up was coming and I placed myself right next to Ryan. I felt like I was about to throw up with nerves, but I wasn't going to let it stop me. I might never see this guy again. The teachers called for us to partner up and I stared deeply at him. I took his hand and I smiled. Ew, I'm not going with the gay kid, he laughed. My blood turned to ice. My stomach flipped and it didn't help the feeling of wanting to throw up. I didn't know what to do. I stood there for what felt like an eternity before retreating to my bed. I just sat and cried all night, pretending to be already asleep when everyone returned. It's been years since then and I still think about it so often. Usually with a laugh and whispering to myself, God, what was I thinking? I'll admit I was pretty naive, but as horrible as it might have been at the time, I really learned a lot about myself. Everyone needs a first love, or at least infatuation, swiftly followed by a first heartbreak. It's something I'd read about, but you don't really understand it until you feel it for yourself.